Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 26 of Into the Rift. For those of you who haven't watched the show, we used to spend our time over on Hitbox, but now, thanks to the effort, of course, of a lot of wonderful people, and of course, Frost Curran, for providing this wonderful overlay, we're now here on Twitch. Finally.
Yay.
So not only is it
We've
easier,
done
Thank
it.
you, Frost. We love you.
Welcome to the future.
not only are we here on Twitch, not only do we have a pretty new overlay, not only do you have your kappas in the chat that I know you've all missed so much, but we have a great show for you today.
I miss the combos.
Everyone missed the game. I mean, the emoticons are just so much better. Let's just start. Anyway. Obviously, it's playoff season. This is the prime time for League of Legends, and there's a lot to talk about tonight, and a lot of disappointment as well. And joining me to talk about it, let's start with Razzleplasm here. The wonderful
Hello.
Raz. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, he just got done with China Talk, so give him a break if he doesn't feel too talkative. But if he probably will, because you're just generally pretty talkative.
Your time's
course-
not over yet, Razzleplasm.
Not yet.
Oh my.
You still have duties to do.
Every
in the
time I
esports
try to
world.
get out, they keep trying to we also have Emily Rand, writer for LOL Esports,
Hi.
Brazilian expert, quality analyst. Always happy to have you on. You're good analyst, yeah. All right, and then of course, Stephen Nguyen.
You had to pause. Did you forget my last name?
No, I was debating on what to call you, and I decided that Noreen wasn't a good call. I thought like we've.
It's like-
I
tried
still
Noreen.
blame
I-
Chris and Kelsey Moser for that.
Well, you guys can.
Steven Yang.
I
Yeah,
know,
the
he
Yang
got
thing's another story for another time.
Another.
A man who apparently goes by many names, but happy to have him here anywhere. Frequently one of our panelists.
I'm
General
like one of those
League of Legends
faceless men,
enthusiast.
faceless men from Game of Thrones, alright?
It's perfect. Guy I occasionally stomp at Smash Bros.
I just realized that I probably came off extremely racist because no one got that reference. It's like, oh, are you calling him Yang because he's?
No. Oh my god.
It's like there's not very many rules if you want to be a guest on Into the Rift and want to generally avoid racism and racial slurs. Thank you, Raz, for treading the line. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Anytime.
But now that
Raz
everyone's
isn't
here,
being racist,
introduced,
guys. No
comfortable-
worries. Long story short, some guy confused me for some Chinese guy named Yang and gave me $75, and I did not give it back to him. I took the $75 and I ran for it.
All right, scumbag Noogs and the rest of my wonderful panelists.
Okay.
I would like to start. So obviously we have a lot of regions to cover: EU, NA, Korea, and the King of the Hill tournament format. Of course, LPL. Raz. Yeah, I know. It's been a great set of playoffs.
Oh,
Uh,
God.
But of course, we're going to start with one of my favorite regions. It's going to be CB Law finals between Cade Stars and INTZ. Of course, deciding who would go to the international wildcard qualifier in Turkey. And we had iVillain on before we let you go on. We had iVillain come on a couple of weeks ago on our previous episode, and he told us all about how Cade Stars was going to crush the shit out of INTZ. How all they had to do was shut down Revolta, and everything would come together, and it would be effortless because their players were better. And I believe him. The man sounded confident. Emily, did that happen? Was that what we saw in this best of five?
No, it's not. INTZ won 3-0. I think the first game, I mean, like, to be honest, I favored Cade going into the set as well. I think INTZ, like rather than focusing on, I guess, what Cade did wrong, like, I'd rather focus on what INTZ did really well. A lot of things that I actually didn't think they were going to do really well. First of all, Revolta, like, I don't know, like, I've been really critical of him, or, like, I guess skeptical of him on the new patch. Like, I was afraid that it was really, really going to cause some significant concern for that team, because throughout the season they really relied on his early aggression, the way he dictated the pace of the game on junglers like Lisa and like Nidalee, like Rek'Sai. Like super mobile Jarvan. When Jarvan was super popular, he was like owning people on Jarvan too. So these really like mobile early junglers where he could just like not only gank early and often, but just really control the pace of the game through his jungle rotations. Now they put him on Gragas, and he actually did like a lot better. Like I feel like I owe Revolta an apology for not for like doubting him on this patch because like he performed really well, and I feel like in the first game they just picked a more scaling comp, so they put Mikau on Jinx, they had Talkers on Azir. And then with Gragas jungle, Maokai, and Janna. So just a lot of zone control. So Cade did a really good job with their early game. They just didn't push their advantages enough. So that basically what happened is around like the 26-minute mark, there's a team fight where Revolta, they're trying to siege the mid turret. The INTZ is trying to siege the mid turret. Revolta goes in, ults as Gragas, blows 3 of Cade's members back, and basically INTZ is just able to kite them down the mid lane, and that's what happened. Like it was a tale of like the two compositions, and so at a certain point the time for Cade's composition ran out. And I mean props for INTZ because I feel like they went into that game, they knew what they had to do with the composition that they drafted, and they executed it, and they managed to stay within a certain amount of gold and objectives that they didn't give up too much. And I also felt like whenever they did give something up, they did a good job of trying to make sure they took something, even if it wasn't something necessarily like equal. They made sure that they took something to try to keep themselves in it. So, and I mean the whole other story of the set, I guess, was like, the story of INTZ, in a nutshell, is they basically went from previously, before the season started with Djokovic, they had extended laning phase. They were a lot more passive. They were very objective focused. They'd kind of go into a section and they'd like pepper the map with wards, and then they're like, okay, we're going to move into, like, it was very obvious to see where they were going, but it was fairly methodical. And then Revolta came on and it was completely different. And I feel like for a while now, we haven't seen the two primary carries who were like previously the carries, Yang and Mikau. I feel like we didn't really see them carry as much during the season because Revolta was often hard carrying the team. But when it got to these playoffs, specifically this series against Cade, I was really happy to see Mikau, and like Yang had a couple of like questionable gauges on Maokai in the first game, but after that he settled down. So, and he had that like sick gnarl that everyone was talking about too. So, I mean, I was really happy to see Mikau, how well he did. Like I think he's a very good AD carry because he's someone who can fall behind and then get back in it through defensive team fight positioning, which is really awesome.
And it seems like to me, when INTZ picks a scaling comp, this is something that they did when they were first showing up on the scene, when you were first showing me games, like trying to, like, this team is good, watch this team is awesome. They would, like, frequently build comps around Mikau.
Did she show you the Draven game?
Oh, I've seen the Draven game.
Mikau,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, where everything is just, like, devoted to peeling for him, and his positioning isn't always perfect, but like when it comes down to mid and late game team fights, if it's not, his team like always backs him up, whatever the situation is, and makes up for it. So he's really solid, and I feel like you get this misconception of INTZ when you watch the regular season that Revolta's carrying, if you haven't watched the team outside of the regular season. You know, and Revolta is carrying, to be fair, but like you get the impersonation that INTZ is like a one-man team because he's just doing so much in the early game. But like when you watch this finals, I think you get to see like the full strength of the team, and this set more than anything, well, maybe not the whole set, but like at least the first and second game seemed to me like just solid examples of INTZ as a team and what they can do as a team.
Also, Talkers in that first game had some like maybe not game changeable, like mind blowing zeros, like very well timed, very well like control of the zone.
I remember I love game one a lot in the sense that Keed played it out so damn well in the early game, and honestly I can really put it on. His name's Mylon, right? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Mylon.
Yeah. It's on him in the sense of why they lost that set, in my opinion, because for the longest time they needed him to split the side lane. They needed him to do it, but he always they always grouped for a a 5-man push in which they couldn't really sustain. Like they couldn't do it because of course like Corki couldn't reliably hit the tower with an Azir, Maokai. Like he couldn't get into range obviously because like yeah, it was not gonna it was not going to happen. Like which is why I didn't like the pick. It was a last pick Corki into that composition. I didn't like it. But if they were going to use it, they had to use it properly in the sense that like Shyvana had to actually split the lane and use their advantage, but it never happened. And it was just like they always had waves going against them for whatever reason. Like whenever, even if they want to fight, it was like, well, they can't really push anything because their side lanes are not in their favor because Milan's just not splitting top or bottom lane. And so, yeah.
It's just 100% like the wrong choice. You're right. They just misread what they needed to do at this time, and it just felt just overall just not very solid from Cade. And you just can't out wave clear a Jinx and an Azir, and that's not an amazing wave clear composition, but it's solid, right? Obviously they got Gragas too, and you're just not going to dive a Maokai and a Janna. It's just not going to happen. So like, why are you spending time in this lane with a lower range AD carry trying to siege this tower? Like, you're just wasting, you're just like burning resources basically because your Lee Sin is going to fall off, and you're just every minute you spend not like doing something or forcing something or getting some sort of advantage, you're just losing gold value because you picked Lee Sin as a jungler. And you're right. I think the Shyvana split push needed to happen, and it didn't clearly. And as a result, it just felt like Cade's, and this first game was like sadly the best example of Cade's decision making because it felt like it went down. After every game after that, and I think you can probably mostly accredit that to Tilt, especially after that 5-man Gnar ultimate. Like, I think very clearly frustrating, like very clearly some miscommunications, but I feel like from talking to William, from talking to Ivil, they had a very solid strategy, and I think that maybe they made the mistake that a lot of people did, which is that they underestimated INTZ. They underestimated the other players present, and also Revolta as well. Just because, like Emily said, like I never in my life thought I would see him play Gragas well. And obviously Gragas is particularly powerful right now, so it doesn't surprise me that he would play it. But it was just so outside of the scope of things that he normally plays and normally uses to carry the team that I think even Cade just didn't expect it. And I think it might have thrown them off a little bit, at least for picks and bans in game one. I'm not 100% sure on that, though.
I'm not sure how anyone could expect that. Yeah. Go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think it helped. I'll just finish quickly, sorry. I just don't think it helped the Tilt at all, because when they fell prey to that 5-man ambush.
Yeah.
So, I don't have any visual demonstrations on me, because I don't know if anyone YouTubed that on later. Emily, do you know?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone YouTubed the one in bot. I think it was 4-man, but yeah, I know what you're talking about, where they just ambushed Cade coming through the.
Well, if anyone in the chat watched, someone did YouTube that one Samsung game. I think it was, I forget who they were playing in Korea at the time, but like there was a lane ward, and they saw all 5 members of Samsung walk into the blue side bot lane bush in front of the inner tower, and they were gonna ambush whoever they were playing. And then because they saw that, they just like rumble ulted it and just completely 5-man wrecked them. So INTZ was super behind. They all hid in that bush, and they I think they only killed like 3 people, right? And then they just started clawing their way back in that game. That had to be so demoralizing to fall to a trick like that.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it actually ties really well into your point. So thanks, Negan. You're wonderful. Because basically, my point is that after this set, after the set against Pain, right? That horrible game 1 where Talkers just Jockster ult, Janna ult, and then Talkers just wipes everyone forward with that ridiculous 3-minute 0 ult. And all the memes cropped up about focus the Nexus. But I feel like after that game 1, INTZ, who was a team that, throughout the season, I didn't see them. And, if you go to, actually, GP10 did a really good, preview. There's also one coming out from LOL Esports. I wrote the INTZ part later today. But there's a really, really actually good preview of all the teams on GP10 right now. They talk about INTZ, and they talk about their performance throughout the playoffs. And I feel like the only thing I would add to that is that throughout the year, throughout the regular season, they were not they're not like Samsung Blue. They actually didn't fall behind in the early game. Like they were a very like early aggressive team that kind of usually sprinted out to these leads because you had Jockster and you had Revolta just roaming everywhere and killing people. So I think that this finals and the set with Pain really proved to INTZ themselves probably that like, hey, like not only can we get out to early leads, but like we can also come back from anything. Like even when people are on our Nexus, we can win. So I mean that's definitely something really like good. I like that they don't give up. I really, really like that in a team.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that you can really teach, right? Like
exactly.
But like this team will not give up.
Well, and
Exactly.
I mean, you can coach it, but like in theory, but it's so when there's like a team that noticeably tilts, like it's so rare for them to change that. Like I just as like a general example, I'm pretty sure everyone knows. Like Dyrus is known for tilting like harder than anyone in the top lane, right? And that's why you camp Dyrus. Is like he just starts playing like shit if you camp him, and like it's gotten better slowly but surely. But like if TSM had just if Dyrus never went on tilt, like TSM would be a completely different team, and like the structure of playing against TSM would be different. And so it's like it is a big thing, and it does affect how teams perform, and like the mental game does factor in. So it's awesome to see that they have that, especially as such a young team in general. And yeah, international wild card
starts tomorrow on M Network. I'm still super salty about that.
The hype is real for that one.
INTZ is in the country for less than 24 hours.
That's before they have to play.
Everyone's
how
like,
unfair
oh man,
is that?
INTZ is just gonna wipe the floor with everyone. Like, I will say this. I will not be surprised if INTZ drops a game. However, I do believe in the team, and I do believe that they're the best team there.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't mean they're gonna win. I'm just saying.
Just to like do an interesting overview. The teams that are there are Besiktas. I can never say that correctly. They're the Turkish team. Hard Random, which is an upset because I don't watch any of those teams, like any of that region's games. But they are actually not the highest rated. Like for instance, in their season, they were tied for 4th. They were basically 5th place in that area. Like Virtus Pro and Moscow 5 were obviously like the favorites going into it, but Hard Random was able to beat them Moscow 5 in the grand final. So I was like, okay, well, unfortunate for that team. Kind of like the Kaboom effect. I want to say that, the Kaboom effect. Like,
no, that happened. I mean, that happened. But like, Cade was the best team last year, and Kaboom went to Worlds. So
yeah, and so Hard Random, Besiktas, Detonation Focus Me, the Japanese team, Chiefs for OPL, INTZ for CBLOL, Bangkok Titans, which is not even supposed to be there, but guess what?
The
Saigon Fantastic Five couldn't get their visas.
It upsets me because as a Vietnamese person, it's very sad to see that they can't go because of visa issues, but whatever.
Now you know how Gambit felt.
Yeah, I know. Damn it.
Like Gambit injustice.
So you think, Emily? You think that?
Oh yeah, and Chaos for Latin America. I just want to put that out there. That was it.
The
I just forgot the last team.
The afterthought, Raz.
100% coming out on top. INTZ.
I think they're the best team. That doesn't mean that I think they're going to come out on top. I don't think the best team always wins these tournaments. I think that they should make playoffs, but like in terms of like, are they going to like raise the entire international scene? Like I feel like the way people are talking about it, like from what CBLOL they've watched, they're like, oh, like Brazil is obviously better than all these other regions, right? In terms of like development. And like honestly, like I would have to say most likely yes. Like I feel like their infrastructure is likely, like if not the best, one of the best out of the developing regions. They're going to the international wildcard tournament. And I do think that they have some strong teams. Obviously there's like the top 2 teams. They have like INC and Cade, and then there's a drop off where you have like Pain and my personal favorite Kaboom Black. And then there's another significant drop off after that. But you have all these teams that are, I mean, I feel like their CBLOL this year really, really helped the region a lot. Just to have a regular offline tournament was huge. And I feel like their infrastructure, like I said, is just at the top or the best out of the regions attending, from what I've heard. Now, do I think INTZ is the best team there? Yeah, I'll reiterate that. I think it will likely come down to Brazil versus Turkey. But I wouldn't be surprised to see another team sneak in there. I mean, I think INTZ is a good team, and I just hope that, like, my hope, because I'm always worried when, like, my teams are favored. My teams are never favored. It makes me really nervous. I always hope. I just want them to go on the international stage, and, like, especially Revolta. Like, I love Revolta. I love his narrative. Nugan, if you want to touch upon that yourself, because I know you're a fan.
No,
but like, I want them to go to this international tournament and just show people. Like, I want them to play at their best. And if they play at their best and they still lose, then that's okay. I just want them to be able to show the world them at their best.
All right. So, Nugan, why don't you?
Am I really doing this?
Just give me.
Choose, Nugan.
I want to talk about these teams a little more, but give me the narrative. We're here. We're talking about BR. Tell me about.
All right, this
all
all
tale of a man named Revolta.
This all spawned because of that, like, fucking Reddit thread about how TSM's the protagonist of a sports manga. And let me fucking tell you something. That guy only fucking watched, like, Prince of Tennis, which is like the Bleach of sports manga. It's shit, alright? So let me tell the real narrative, right? If anything, TSM was last year's protagonist. Well, like, not even like okay. So, I were to choose a sports manga narrative, it would be, the protagonist would be Revolta in INTZ. So Revolta's on Keed last year, and Keed's like the best team, and then they lost to...
He was on CMB, but then he was on Keed. Just so you know.
Okay, well... regardless, he's being tossed around from team to team, and then he's on, like, Keed, and then, like, he gets moved to the sub position for personal reasons. And then they pick up 2 Koreans, right? To basically take a spot, whatever. And then he goes off to find a new team, INTZ, right? This awesome team, whatever. And then Revolta wants to prove that, like, he's still really fucking good, and I guess people shit on him for missing smites? Yes? No?
Yeah, missing smite, and then just general, like, tilting.
Yeah, so people shit on him for that, so he has something he has a chip on his shoulder, he has something to prove. Then INTZ beats the shit out of all the other teams in the regular split. Revolta hard carries, and so everyone thinks that it's a one-man team. Gets to the finals, beats the shit out of the team that moved into the sub position, 3-0. And then now they've conquered their region, and now they go off to to International Wildcard, where they're going to prove their mettle against everyone else who shits on BR. On Reddit, I mean.
Between the relative artistic talent of every panelist that's ever been on this show and the passion for manga in general, I'm pretty sure we could, like, Kickstarter the sports manga. My new favorite would be, like, this one, or, like, the origin story about how, like, X-Peke, like, drops out and comes back. Just a face down Fnatic in the finals. Like, there's, like, so many great narratives. Like, and of course the EDG narrative. Another shout out to Froscar, and she put out a great video explaining the EDG narrative. And if you guys haven't had it explained to you, I won't go into it now because it's a pretty long story. But it involves fake girlfriends, fake suicides, lying, deceit, stealing of team members, lots of hate mail, death threats. It's great. China is a crazy country for esports politics.
That would be something I would want to see on, like, HBO.
Yeah, it's just game of games.
Tales of China.
All right, okay. So aside on the narrative, I want to say that I really do think that I expect Detonation Focus Me to show up. I feel like Japan as a region isn't very strong right now, but I feel like Detonation Focus Me is the formerly, like, the kind of the Pain Gaming of Japan, in the sense that they're so far ahead of everyone else across the board that they're just, like, don't really have that serious competition. So I think if they have, I believe they have gone to NA to scrim and to practice, and if that has been beneficial for them, then they may be able to, like, have a decent showing. And Turkey, I mean, Holy Phoenix is a god, right? Like, that's That's what it comes
Is
down
that a
to.
bet? Is that the
Team,
only
though.
bet? He's a guy.
Veritable Khal Drogo doppelganger. Ganger. Ooh, wow.
You're
it's hard
not
to
on
say.
this team.
Yeah, the guy. Okay, if you don't know, he looks like Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones, and he is fucking unstoppable. He's just a great AD carry, and he's awesome. He's great. I mean, like the thing is I kept up with Turkey last year to cover Worlds, and I haven't kept up this year. But when that name popped up when this team qualified, I was like, oh yeah.
Nardius is their AD carry.
What? I don't know anything about Turkey.
That's what I was
folks.
trying to say. I was
No,
like,
get
damn,
outta
he's
here.
not on this team.
Turkey's gonna lose. Turkey's gonna lose.
That's it.
That's it. I'm completely uneducated on Turkey this year. I apologize.
Dark Passage was in the finals and they just kind of dropped out to Besiktas. Besiktas. That's what I like to call.
All right, Turkey.
So yeah,
Sort your
Turkey.
shit out. Holy Phoenix needs to be in the finals. Please.
He wants his
Not
Khal
making me-
Drogo,
yeah.
people. He wants the Khal Drogo.
Doc,
He wants the
wait,
he
just,
wants the composed cutie pie look. That's what he wants. The composed cutie pie look.
look, if I can't ship my esports wildcard regions, like, what good are they to me? They need to take games off of Alliance. They need to be cute.
And they need to be cute. Nice. Hey, you know who's a good-looking team? INTZ.
God.
Volta.
Tell me more on BR. What do we think of Chiefs quickly as a team, and do we expect them to contest at all? What do we expect from their showing in this event?
Well, Raz clearly wants them to win.
Yeah, I know.
I want to hear what you guys think.
I'm not too familiar with the OC region.
From what I've heard from talking with people at LL Esports and stuff like that, they're third, like a solid third, 3-4 with obviously the GPL, but unfortunately, like talking to James about or Obscurica, who's the GPL kind of person on LL Esports. It is really unfortunate that Saigon Fantastic Five can't be there because they got a 3-0 in the finals, and now Bangkok Titans are apparently a significant step down from where SF5 would have been. So, but from what I've heard, and Raz can totally correct me with what he's seen from the teams that are there, but Chiefs are a solid 3-4 generally, and when people are ranking the regions or the teams that are there.
That
A
is
solid
actually
3-4.
I would say it's higher, but I'm biased in that sense. But I feel like I understand where people are coming from in that sense, because let's look at the wildcard regions. With the wildcard regions, it's a general race to see which region is a little bit more developed in that sense, and that's what it comes down to. You have Detonation Focus Me, and if I'm correct, they have a gaming house. Check. INTZ. Okay, so INTZ definitely have more than gaming.
They have a gaming house and an LCS functionally to play in.
Yeah, so I'm actually surprised that INTZ is even in this wildcard tournament, but for whatever reason, Riot.
Hint, Riot.
Uh-huh. But that's just the thing for Riot. Get your shit together. Legitimately, somehow they felt like LMS was a region that could qualify automatically, can get that seed, but for whatever reason, I was like, no, not Brazil. Just not up to.
Secretly,
That
they're
makes me
all
pretty
Alliance
salty about it.
fans, and they're like, we don't forgive you yet. Right, doesn't forget.
So then, of course, you have Besiktas that also have a gaming house, because Turkey is also pretty big when it comes to esports in general. And so you look at OPL, and that doesn't have they don't have gaming houses. That region as a whole is pretty bad when it comes to money flowing business wise for esports. But I do think that the players are extremely talented, and I think that the team is extremely professional, a lot better than a good portion of the OPL squads. I think the only other teams that can compete in team structure is definitely Dire Wolves. I definitely think that team is really solid, and they're a new one, so they have a amazing coach, they have great team structure, etc. But then after you get and I guess Legacy as well, definitely. And then after you get to that point, you start to realize a massive drop off, like extreme drop off to the point you see like, what was that team name again? Please, you know exactly what team I'm talking about. You know exactly.
You have to be talking about
Rich Gang. And so you have that, and you realize the standard. It's not a standard, but it's like it's not a standard, but it's like you understand.
Chiefs
where the
someday
league
would
is.
like to reach the standard set forth by teams such as Rich Gang
Rich Gang.
and their
yeah.
pursuit
Might want
of
to be careful, Raz. You
esports.
should talk them too much; they might come for you next.
But in all honesty, like I guess that's a thing with every region. With every region, you'll have a massive drop off, and so that's why you saw like the major factor is every team 3-0ing like the next best in their region, and so except for maybe Bangkok Titans because they're there illegitimately.
They got 3 of them, and they're still.
They
Well,
got
it's very legitimate. They bribed a public official not to give them visas. That is called legitimate. I'm joking. That probably didn't happen. I don't know what happened. I'm sure it's an unfortunate set of circumstances.
In a way.
Other than hard random, every team got 3-0'd except for Bangkok. They got 0-3'd, so that's just the thing that happened. That's just what happened.
God.
Quality teams representing the region. This is like. That's a little disappointing, I think, obviously.
If
for
it
that
means
region.
anything, Detonation FM only got their gaming house like 2-3 weeks into the season.
Hmm.
They were actually gonna
Yeah.
get. I think I'm allowed to say this now. It's been a while, because Rascal Justers got their gaming house before the season started, but I heard that Detonation was actually gonna get theirs first. But when they found out that Rascal Justers got their house first, they wanted to wait to see whether or not the investment was worth it.
Hmm.
But then even though Rascal Justers kind of shut the bud, they were like, let's like fuck it, let's go for it.
I really want to live in a house with you other guys and just be sweaty and gross and play video games. I'll be like, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Look at how much fun Rascal Jesters are having.
It was just kind of weird at first because
Yeah.
at the beginning of their gaming house stuff, like they didn't have like really good central heating or insulation. So like every time they posted pictures of them practicing, they were like wearing scarves and mittens at their computers, and I'm like, this, what the kind of gaming house is
The
this?
Duncan Shields training house.
The Duncan Shields training house.
It's beautiful.
All right. Well, looks like we're kind of generally in agreement that INTZ is going to come in first. Their only competition going to be Turkey. Oh, sorry. The final game probably between INTZ and Turkey, not their only competition. We'll see what happens. Obviously, coming up, I think you guys said tomorrow, correct?
Tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow.
Yeah.
I was
Starting
expecting a
at,
lord bet between you two
my
or
9
something
o'clock.
over your teams, but I guess not. What
So
a letdown.
second, is
I
it
don't want to go
AM?
too far. I just think that INTZ is gonna like shit the bed early because no prep time and jet lag. They're just gonna absolutely just lose out in the group stages. They're gonna get through. Obviously, they're gonna beat some of these teams, and they're gonna get through to the bracket stages. But getting up to that point is gonna be difficult for them.
No.
All right. Did you say, is it 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., Emily?
It's 9 a.m. Central,
9
7 a.m.
So
Central, yeah.
7 a.m. Pacific time. If
Pacific
you are
time.
that early, you can watch it while you're at work. Obviously, some
I'll take my
pretty
lunch break
important.
during INTZ's first game.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Obviously, the next region we're going to talk about, the one most important to Raz here, near and dear to his heart, it's going to be the LPL playoffs.
Oh baby.
And the
Yeah.
veritable
It's
shit
not like
show.
you just got off China talk.
So let's go through this briefly, guys. We're obviously on the same day as China Talk. It's kind of it's a show that we obviously love and support. We bring on guests all the time, so we won't go into super detail on China today. So if you want more of that, you can check out their VODs over on CLBC, Chinese League of Legends broadcasting channel.
Support the China
Um,
Talk crew.
Support the China Talk crew, yeah. But we'll
We've
go through
actually
a
had
brief.
everyone from China Talk here except for Drexen, so we're coming for
That's-
you next. Sometime.
We're coming for you.
We're coming for you.
We're coming for you.
You don't know yet.
Somewhere Drexen is like, I feel like someone's talking about me. I don't know, I get that feeling.
He just
It's like,
starts
Drexen, you're next.
sneezing uncontrollably.
All right, weird Drex and fantasies aside.
Why is it weird?
Because we're weird people.
Let's come a lot from you,
fair.
Raz.
All right. You two don't get started because I know. I've been in the chat room with you guys enough to know.
I'll stop.
Yeah. All right. China. Let's talk about China. And I want to start with my favorite team, Snake. Now, I haven't watched these games yet. I haven't watched them yet, I'll be honest. So tell me, how'd they do? Did they do good? Did Crystal just crush everybody, Raz?
Yeah, you know, it all worked together. Everyone doubted Snake, but they brought it together. And now they're in the finals, man. They're going up against EDG.
Oh,
They're looking like the favorites.
Did Kelsey cry?
Kelsey, she actually took the trip to China because when you were like watching the stream, you saw a snap to the crowd and Kelsey was like a tear coming down her face. It's just like,
oh, Raz, tell me.
Oh, have mercy. No,
And then
next thing
you know,
I didn't watch the game, but I have Twitter, so I watched the endless shit talk for Snake coming in.
And then
so
next thing you
obviously
know,
they
you
didn't
see
win.
Kelsey at that coffee shop that they
Yeah,
show in the
like that,
commercials.
Denigration of
No,
Crystal.
we're done with that. But yeah, it's just Snake did horribly. They did actually pretty poorly.
Good, please. I was a Snake fan. I'm not taking it back. I was. They were bad, but I loved them. Like, I've loved CLG and every other team that ends up being bad.
Yeah.
That's the rundown.
Maybe you need better taste in teams.
Maybe I do.
I think you're
And
both
here's
cursed.
the thing. Here's the beautiful thing of all of this, because even though I'm like talking shit about Snake and saying that they're horrible, they beat, like, I wouldn't say they're like the team that I loved for a good while coming in, King, who's horrible, by the way. King's a really bad team. The King literally picked Vayne in all 5 of their games.
They picked Vayne.
All 5 of their games they went on with a Vayne pick, and so I guess it just didn't work out for them, but they got to game 5, so okay. So Crystal, I mean, oh god, I don't want to talk about Crystal, but Snake went on to face
Crystal
LGD.
Bad.
Crystal, okay.
Like, can I just
Every time we talk
interject
about Snake,
and
we
be
talk,
like,
okay, go ahead.
Crystal was bad, and like I have not been a Crystal fan, more so because where people put him in relation to other AD carries, but then like actually hating on Crystal because whatever, he like throughout the season he was serviceable. Like aside from that one, like there was that one time where he had the Fizz ult, then he jumps back into his team as Tristana. That was pretty great. But
Kelsey,
like in general,
Kelsey has a gif of that on
yeah,
file, by the
in
way.
general,
if you guys follow
like,
Kelsey,
Crystal hasn't been like super awful, but in the King matches, he was not good at all. like the worst, and because everyone kept like I heard 2 camps, right? I only started watching Snake this year, so like there was the oh my gosh, Crystal's awful camp, and then there was the oh my god, Crystal's godly camp. And I watched him and I was like, okay, he's like okay, makes a lot of positioning errors, but not like super bad. But in that King set, he was
Wait, are you talking about like during the regular season?
bad.
Camps Crystal is good and Crystal is bad?
Yeah.
All right.
Like I feel like there was like a Crystal is up with Uzi and Death.
Okay, so here's the thing about Crystal, and this is, I think people get this. When you listen to the casters for LPL, and they're great guys, they love Crystal. And the reason they love Crystal is because Crystal is very exciting to cast. Crystal does interesting shit all the time. He feeds or he kills everyone, every game.
Yeah.
He's exciting to cast. He's an easy player to fall in love with. But that variance between feeding and carrying every game makes you a shitty player. So Crystal isn't good. Crystal is hype as fuck. Like, if you want to watch a player that is, you never know what's going to happen. This is why I love Snake. You never know if they're going to come in and sweep the floor with someone or just lose. Snake's your team. But you get to see that come to fruition here in the finals. That whole never knowing thing. And they just...
My finals, yeah.
You know?
And here's the thing, I don't like shitting on a player consistently because I feel like we do that too often, especially to Dada. That's just the thing that happens. And so I want to like talk about
Dada 77 is a god, Raz.
Dada was an inspiration.
The technical Nami waves are what make him good. He misses intentionally, so you'll think he's bad.
He baits them.
So I want to talk about what great happened in this set, and there wasn't a lot of good sets here. Like it was a bit messy. The Snake versus King was kind of messy, but EDG versus World Elite was nice in the sense that you got to see how they played with you. Right now, currently with Deft, it was pretty messy. But then when the anime protagonist thing, that Mugen's probably gonna be like, what? What you doing with this
that's
stuff?
an issue of our
His
manga.
hospital
It's
gown,
hard.
like,
Probably,
sits
like-
in a chair by
Look, the
two
only
sisters.
reason I had a problem with that
Issue
Reddit thread.
6 of the EDG manga.
The only reason I had a problem with that Reddit thread is because he kept talking how they had learned special attacks, and it's like, get out of here.
Oh, God. But through the EDG thing, I felt like for each game, I was like going through each of the pages, because then you're like, all right, this is not looking good. But like Pawn rushed to the scene, came in, like won the game. You're like, all right, there we go. That's what I like to see. That's some excitement.
Yeah. If you ever need a reason to watch China, like Pawn came from the hospital and like permanently probably damaged his own body to play the final game in a best of 5. Baka, God tier Xerath player, unfortunately doesn't really play much of anything else, played with a broken hand and won. So China, China is hype. That's all I'm gonna say. Like
That's
NA
true,
is interesting, but like we spent like 3 minutes this weekend watching High clean his keyboard.
Yeah.
Pawn
Yeah.
to play League of Legends to like triumphantly returned, and we spent 3 minutes watching High clean a keyboard. Like that. I love NA, and I want NA to be like China, but it's just, it's not quite there yet.
So basically what you're saying is more injuries, less keyboard cleaning.
Yes.
NA, there you go. That's how you become a great region.
That's how you become top tier region.
That's the thing, though. I don't know if I should trust this story or not because of how Pawn's pretty much playing now. And I don't know how bad it is because Sanshao is just like... he's making this. I don't know. It feels very like
it's very attached to creating a good esports narrative. Let's just put it that way.
He in another life he would have been a great novelist. That's what it's gonna come down to. So
Nice.
So yeah, I think that I doubt. I want to say that Pawn is probably going to play through MSI, but I don't think it's likely. I think he's just here for the playoffs. So I don't know what's happening here. But yeah, we saw a lot of games. Best set was probably my favorite set was probably IG versus Beachy. You just saw a lot of great sets, a lot of bad sets. But in the end of the day, we have EDG versus an LGD that kind of tanked in the last few weeks of the LPL season, but that's just because they wanted to tank for to be on the opposite side of the bracket from EDG, and guess what? It worked out. Now they get the matchups they wanted. So finals will be EDG versus LGD, and I think EDG is going to take it, but it's a pretty close one, closer than I thought it'd be.
It's definitely just an interesting thing to see. This year's finals for China just feel like they have so much more meaning. For me personally, and a lot of that is just because China's a much more viewed region now because of the English broadcast, obviously because of the work that China Talk has done to kind of bring it to an English-speaking audience as well, and also because EDG is probably the best team in the world, which means that watching what they do and how they play has a lot of impact on the League of Legends scene as a whole. I don't know. That's my thoughts.
I disagree, but I think EDG is a very good team.
Who do you think's the best team in the world?
Right now?
Yeah.
I actually think it's SK Telecom. We can talk about that in the next.
Yeah,
I can see the argument, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with it a lot.
All right. Suddenly I'm left alone on my
But I do think EDG is a really good team. I also think that they're going to be LGD, but I'm actually really happy with the way LGD, are you okay?
Dan just
and now EDG. What do I?
Dan is just
Okay,
I'm doomed
it's alright.
to the
Yeah, I know.
non-good
Poor Dan.
teams. None of my teams will ever win.
I'm really impressed with LGD. In the middle of this season, I thought that they did a really good job playing around their primary weakness, which is their jungler. But I thought that, teams kind of started to figure them out. I think on the new patch, he's buffed a bit. And then additionally, Wayless is just ridiculous right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what I want to see. I want to see the Pawn Wayless matchup, and then how the two teams try to snowball that lane, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
like that, and then obviously the jungler matchup I think is interesting, and obviously I don't think Schwinn is nearly as good as Clearlove, but he is buffed by the patch, so see.
All right, well, I didn't want to stay too long in China, so let's go over and look at KR, since obviously, once again, China Talk, if you guys want to know more about China, aired earlier today. If you didn't catch it, you can find the VOD, I think it's twitch.com, or twitch.tv/CLBC. You can also follow Raz here on Twitter, and I'm sure he'll link out the VOD links when they show up on YouTube as well. So
And support the other China Talk panelists, too, of course, Frost, Kelsey, and Druxum.
Screw those guys.
Whatever, they're not here. We're going to talk Korea, and I'm not going to.
Raz is trying to kill them off. That's why Drexen's next.
Drexen's next. All right, yeah, go on. Should go to the next region.
Korea Talk.
Korea Talk. Korea Talk.
Time, not talk.
Korea Talk.
Korea Talk. Indeed. All right. All right. So this. Oh God, how do you even approach talking about this set?
It was bad.
It was bad.
Like, just say it was bad.
It's like,
I mean,
see it for what it is. Don't beat around the bush.
Stall out as like the train is coming and the train can't stop.
Oh man, I was such a huge fan of Jin Air this season. Obviously, anyone who talks to me knows I'm a huge KT Rolster fan. So even when KT Rolster is awful, I'm still rooting for them. They actually had a good performance towards the end of the season. But Jin Air, last few weeks, they obviously didn't know what to do on the new patch. They didn't know how to draft on the new patch. They didn't know how to do anything on the new patch. First, they just kept trying the same old stuff that they did all year, which was, or all season, which was like playing these like ridiculously scaling poke compositions where even if they messed up, they'd somehow play ridiculously perfectly in like an 80-minute game against CJ Antis, who they played this week. But they still didn't figure out how to play on the new patch, and I was honestly really disappointed because I thought that throughout the season, Jin Air was one of those more creative teams that just had kind of problems with like I guess tilting is a way to say it, but like, you know, if they lost that first game against GE, if they lost that first game against SK Telecom, they somehow couldn't figure out like how to put it together in the second game, and they just get swept. But I thought that was their only issue. I thought they had some interesting early game compositions throughout the season. I thought they had the best game plan against the GE Tigers during the regular season, during the time when no one could possibly beat the GE Tigers. And then they just come into playoffs and they're awful. Like oh God, it broke my heart. Like they just never figured out how to play on the new patch. And CJ, I honestly can't tell whether it's that CJ is somehow like good again. Like I feel like whenever I say that, like whenever you say that CJ's good, the CJ's good, suddenly they're going to be awful the next week. And if you say they're awful, then they're going to be good again. I will say this: Mad Life does look like 110% more confident in game, and that makes a huge difference for that team.
Also, I think Shai's really lucky that Nara isn't pick ban anymore.
Yeah.
That phase in his career was the most awkward phase he's ever had.
It's like he knew.
It was like the big elephant in the room.
It's like he knew. Like, I don't have to learn this bullshittingly hard to learn champion. If I can just, like, play Hecarim, like, in 5 weeks from now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he just had to wait it out, sit low, play his bullshit Mundo games until Nar was just out of there. And then
it's like,
you'd
my
be like,
time's
alright.
now. It's time. Time to take off the gloves.
I can play Hecarim. I think I got this.
I don't have to manage your rage bar. Like, this is easy.
Yeah.
I just gotta buy home guards and TP places and kill people.
And I, to be fair, I also think for CJ's side, we've talked about this time and time again. I think Ambition is actually like pretty solid, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that this current meta, where you have like the split between junglers, where you either have high impact early game junglers or late game junglers who have percentage of max health damage, basically, or you know, hard initiation, Gragas and Sejuani, namely, maybe Zac. I mean, it depends on what you want to play. Obviously, he played some Nunu. I think it's good for him. Like, I think that teams build or having team comps that are all about team fighting for the most part and making picks like already I mean, he played mid. He played mid in a time when Gragas was good. Like, look at that. Now he gets to jungle with it.
Now he gets to jungle with Gragas.
And I just think, like, he has a lot more impact than I ever would have thought. So while I do think that, like, Jin Air really did just roll over and die here and was just awful, like, just bad, I also think that, like, this CJ lineup is pretty solid in terms of, like, the Korean teams that have shown up this season. And I don't think they'll make it any farther, but
Yeah.
Who do
I
they
think
have
that
to play
they
against
did deserve
next?
these wins.
SK
SKT.
Telecom.
Yeah.
I don't see them beating SKT.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna beat Telecom.
SKT is, yeah.
You really don't see CJ Entus beating SK.
There's gonna be that fight.
You're
where,
saying
like,
so casually, like it's like
we
it might
we
might be a thing.
talked about this before show, right? Like where there's gonna be like Coco versus Easy Hoon, who gets Ziggs, and that'll be. No, I'm just teasing. Although I'd actually love to see Easy Hoon on Ziggs again. I don't know why I'm saying that. Like I can't believe I'm saying that, but I am.
How many VODs do you watch a week? Because let me tell you, it only takes one
A lot.
60-minute VOD before you never ever want to watch a Ziggs ever again.
Yeah, it's true.
Does
You're
anyone
like,
have
this
that
time he
picture
cleared the
of
wave, he missed one satchel charge. and it ruined-
Fortunately, the two Ziggs games against Jin Air, because Jin Air was pretty bad, Coco's Ziggs games were
Does anyone have that
mercilessly
picture
short.
of Monte Cristo with like looking really sour, and someone puts the text, "Oh God, not Ziggs again."
Yeah, last
anyone
year,
have
like
that?
I have not.
SKTS.
I have not seen
I
that.
haven't seen that in like a year and
Anyway,
a half or something.
Ziggs is one of the reasons, or in general, the meta, I think, is one of the reasons why SKT is going to do really well. And additionally, I just think that their last set against GE, it didn't mean anything, obviously, because both teams are already locked into second and first place. However, they looked very strong. They looked very coordinated, and I honestly think that they're a better team than GE overall. I think that GE did so well because of their really, first of all, their really strong drafting phase. Like in the beginning of the season, I don't know what Coma was on, like if he was high or something, I don't know, but his
Oh, you
drafting
mean
phases
Xerath
were
first
like
pick skirmish
were
comp
like
with Annie and Sivir?
awful. Oh my god, yeah.
I appreciate the theory crafting.
We're gonna first pick Xerath for you and lose, and then we're gonna put Easy Hoon on Xerath just so he can like wreck people
God.
with it and pick it. Yeah.
Here's the thing: is it's like I can support the theory crafting behind that decision. Like I like it. I like the idea of the skirmish comp that we saw early in the season. But when it didn't work, like the first 3 times, and he kept
Keep
picking it, like every time, like I don't understand. What are you doing? Like
I think the GE Tigers' strengths are definitely that they're a smart team. They do a lot of preparation work. Aside from that one time they didn't prepare for TWE at IM, and I think that they get by on that. Like they get by on their like coordination, their preparation, and their draft. I think that overall SK Telecom, especially in this meta, are a superior team. Even though I do know that GE was kind of trying out some new stuff in their last weeks once they did have the #1 seed locked in, and I was impressed with what they were doing there. But I don't think CJ can stand up to SKT, and I don't think GE can stand up to SKT right now either.
what do you think the score will be at the end of the set?
CJ SKT, I think it'll be a 3-1. I think CJ can take a game from them, but I just don't see them winning.
I'm willing to say 3-0 on this one. I think CJ's all right, but I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I won't be surprised if it's a 3-0 either, because I think that SKT is that much better than CJ.
Like, ambition's all right, but I mean, like he transitioned to the role pretty well. But I mean, only in comparison to like, mid lane ambition, who was he doesn't feed every game anymore. So
I'm gonna
my
say
standards for ambition competitively are pretty low.
I'm gonna say 3-1. I believe.
Yeah,
in
3-1's
the,
a safe one.
I believe in Mad Life enough and Shy's looking more confident. Yes, I believe in them enough to take at least one game.
And now's the part where always I'm horribly wrong, and CJ3O's SKT and everything I know and love dies.
Like,
If that happens, I'll just blame you for a lot.
Like I always
I
predict
swear.
wrong. Like I
Steph, I
always
feel like
predict
you get
wrong.
off on like
You get off on failure. You get-
Yeah.
it's like-
I think everyone has this thing because I think we've made fun of each other for it. So when Raz falls asleep during LCS,
Oh,
bullshit happens.
yeah.
When Emily starts liking a team, they start failing.
They lose.
Daniel will like a rotten apple from the start.
From the start, he'll be like,
I like
he's
people.
like, I know this man just got out of prison, but I support him. He's a changed man. And then he just goes back into prison. It's like, Dan, why'd you make that decision for
I
me?
mean-
Dan, why'd you do that?
Man, when you phrase it like that, it makes me sound like an idiot. I am pretty dumb to like Snake. I will give you that much. That was an interesting choice on my part. I still love them. I love you, Baka. God damn, I love you, Flandra. But and the one that and that's funny because they don't get talked about, right? It's the Crystal Show. It's the Crystal Show. We all know it's the
Yeah.
Crystal Show.
Yeah.
But
For me, it's the Ella show, but yeah.
I love Ella, but
yeah,
Ella.
but I think
supports
Ella's
the
another one of the
Crystal Show,
supporting
so-
cast.
Yeah,
Crystal Show.
yeah, everything he does is just supporting the crystal.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, that's.
they're not going to bench him. I'm hoping we'll see more Crystal next season. I fucking love Crystal. He's so fun to watch. He's horrible for competitive esports, but he's great for spectator esports. He is excellent in that regard. But let's move on to our more local regions, our
Huh?
more covered regions, EU and NA. And let's start with EU. Fnatic and Unicorns of Love.
Oh boy.
We never thought Unicorns of Love would get here. Let's be clear. No one in there. Okay, Raz, you're looking at me like you thought this would happen. Did you think?
What? No.
Okay, no, okay. And
I knew it. This is your I called it moment. Right?
This is where I thought Gambit would have just dealt with that team from the very beginning.
and to be
that-
fair, I got on the hype train for Unicorns of Love when I saw Power of Evil shit on Alex Each before they made it into LCS, right? But they sucked this season. Like they
you
weren't.
were on that hype train, like at IEM San Jose.
I loved this team. But
Of
like
course
the
you do.
whole thing with Unicorns of Love is like how sustainable is cheese? Not very sustainable. You know, like you're gonna run out of weird stuff to pick in the jungle, and your team play, while solid, isn't the best, and Power of Evil can really only hard carry on a couple of champions. He's obviously a very talented mid laner, but I mean like hard carry, like single-handedly win team fights and carry them on his back. Like that part of his champion pool was pretty limited.
Yeah. I was actually surprised when they started moving the cheese out of the jungle and started putting it in Power of Evil's hands, and I was like, oh,
That
that's
Varus
creative.
mid.
They'll
That's
never
creative.
expect that, Rosal.
And
they just
Because everyone's gonna be like, Kikis is gonna do some shit. And it's like Power of Evil's been practicing that shit in secret. You won't see that from him?
I don't
Well-
even
I
like.
think, like, the name of the game for me between these two teams, and, like, you guys can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I see. These are two teams that, like, while both have kind of improved their 5v5 team fighting, it's not that great. And so they end up doing, like, all these, like, skirmishes, right? And I think for Fnatic, they're just a better team at doing that. So
Yeah.
when
I mean,
you
that's
have
been
both
their
teams,
MO all season.
and
like, that's
yeah,
what them so
when you have
strong.
both teams and they meet head to head, and they're both just going for these random skirmishes all around the map, then you end up with what Fnatic and Unicorns of Love was in the final. And the better team at doing that won, which was Fnatic.
Well, and
So-
it's just, I mean, that's like when this team started, we were in the Sivir meta and the skirmish meta, and they were really good at that. And obviously, they haven't strayed away from that. So, like, it makes sense that in two teams who pick skirmishes, I would take Fnatic any day. Like,
Yeah.
they're the hands down the best team in EU at skirmishing. It's like all they do, and that is a substantial weakness, especially going into MSI against a lot of teams who are incredibly good at 5v5 fights. But, I mean, if we see some patches and Sivir suddenly becomes like the broken queen of AD carries again, we could see Fnatic like have a pretty good showing. And obviously, I mean, that's all it takes is for skirmishing to be powerful, and they're going to do well.
Well, I mean, MSI is in May, right? So there can't be that many patches from now to then to drastically change that.
I don't think Fnatic will do amazing. I'm just saying, like, if Fnatic is going to do well and do amazing in the future, like, that's really when they're going to shine, is on patches that favor skirmishing comps. But
yeah, like 2-3-man skirmishes, yeah.
Yeah, in the tank meta, it's mostly about 5v5s, right? Like, it's mostly about 5v5s, or if you're picking a Shyvana, like split pushing, or split pushing in general to avoid the 5v5. And it just feels like both of these teams aren't super on the split pushing plan. Like, they much more prefer to just skirmish and get small advantages off that to snowball objectives. Like, and they're kind of it's interesting.
If they snowball objectives, like.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because you brought this up earlier.
Can I just like. That was one thing that I guess bothered me watching these games, and maybe it's just me. Like, I do like when teams are super fighty, like INTZ, for example. They're super fighty. I love them. Like, I love Kaboom Black. They're like super 5v5 team fights all the time to take objectives. But here's the thing. Like, Fnatic, they fight and then they don't take an objective. And both teams did this, but like the one that sticks out in my mind is like Fnatic chooses like it's actually really good engage in their jungle. I think they were on blue side, and they kill most of them. There's only like 2 unicorns left, and they could have gone and pushed an objective, but they all go back to buy. And I'm just like, no, like why would just take an objective? Like, and I guess that was. I like watching teams fight a lot, but I think that's definitely an exploitable weakness for both of these teams, is that they don't transition it into trading objectives with their opponent.
Which, I mean, when you don't transition things like that, it what it implies is lack of high competitive tier wave control. Because it should be easy. I mean, if you're on top of your wave management and you're doing well on your wave management, like, you should have a wave at the tower after you fight, or a wave approaching the tower, or like one of your lanes should be pushing. And the fact that they don't find situations where they can push like that either means that Unicorns of Love and Fnatic are even in like the wave clear thing, or neither of them are doing a very good job of following up, which is a little disconcerting as far as EU goes on a global scene competitively.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Well, is there anything that really stood out to you guys in this series, as from Unicorns of Love or from Fnatic? Is there anything, like, do you think Fnatic is going to remain at the top in the coming season? Do you think the teams are going to figure them out? What do these finals really mean for Europe as a region?
I should go first, I think, because, I don't know, I guess I haven't said much in a while. I just think that EU in general is a growing region, ? Because, of course, now Origen is coming in. And on top of that, you have teams like H2K starting to like brush off the rough parts, like the rough edges on that team. Like, they're really starting to shine. And on top of that, I want to say same with SK, because SK has been that team that they've been really good at a particular style, and they've had that very obvious weakness, but it looks like that weakness they're starting to realize that the solution to that. So I think those teams are starting to come up, and I think that Unicorns of Love is just a team that's really, really strong in best of fives, or at least strong for this split when teams are really starting to figure it out. So I think next split it's going to be hard to really. Everyone's going to say that. Everyone's going to like say that Unicorns of Love is not a good team, or blah blah blah, or will devalue it. But I do think that's going to be the case, and next split's going to that's what we'll see.
I suppose you're right. I kind of forgot about Origen coming into again, and obviously you're right about H2K, and obviously, as chat reminds me, the Ryu storyline, is just it's excellent.
The Ryu fangirl song.
The moment when they won and secured themselves third place, and like Ryu stood up, like huddled with the team, and everyone was like handshaking Prawley, and Prawley got this like light on his face. I was like, like as far as narratives go, like I'm not always a big fan of the way H2K plays the game personally, but as far as narratives go, this is a pretty sweet team to get behind. Like the fact that everyone on the team
who wrote about that? I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Self-promotion.
I know, right?
Check out her
No.
stuff on
I'm
esports.
I'm so happy for you. Oh my gosh, like super, super happy.
I
Like,
just want his legacy to be more than that kid who died.
yeah,
Here, right? Like that, because and that's slowly fading, which I think is important.
yeah. That's like all I wanted.
Now he knows,
Yeah.
man. Now he knows how it is to be on the other side of that reverse sweep.
Must
Like
have felt so good.
a tear of happiness is dropping down. Oh my god! Even if it is just third place, he's like, "This is the day, the best day of my life."
He's on a good team. Like he's on a team that performs well, that is getting better, and I think. I mean, obviously it's a fluff point. There's not a whole lot of substantial analysis in the Ryu having a good time and a good life point, but I think it makes me happy. You know, like it really like
He's washed away his
sins.
sins.
He really seems
Shame.
Yeah, he does honestly really seem happy with that team, and the team, like I mean, for me, Ryu is someone who was always compared unfavorably to other mids, even when he was like one of the best mid laners in Korea. I remember saying this on a previous show, but like everyone was just like, "Oh yeah, Ryu's not as good as Dade, he's not as good as Faker." Like obviously, no, he's not as good as Faker. But at the same time, I feel like that, and then transitioning to Europe, and he bounced from team to team, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Ryu sucks." Like, no, he doesn't. And I'm just really happy, really happy that A, he's in a place that he actually genuinely seems to really like being, and B, that he was able to show people that he is not a bad mid laner. Quite far from it, actually. So yeah, Ryu does not suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah. And that's the thing with EU. I want to also
That's all it took. That's all it took, guys. Beating an EU team for third place now. Ryu doesn't suck. We did it.
It doesn't.
But I mean, public perspective
EU
is
in the
important.
summer.
I feel badly that has to be the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what it takes to change public opinion. Is you gotta fight in a region and show up in the region that you're playing in, and it's less to do with the quality of the region overall and more to do with your performance in your own personal region.
I think the
like,
quality will bump up though. I think that like the next split, especially Rocket, like the Rocket hype was big before, but this time I think it's at a decent place, like a little better. Yeah,
It's easier
so
to
I think
go up than
like and those they're all
Oh, wait,
high, so
I said
I
that
think
wrong. Go on. I said that wrong.
it's easier. To No, I just think that there's a lot of hype going into the summer. A lot of teams are starting to understand each other. I guess is the whole point.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're keeping it brief for EU today. We'll be back to figure out exactly what they're doing as we start to approach MSI and these teams start to perform. Obviously, we'll see as more details are released. But let's look at NA. And obviously, our NA first place match, a little more one-sided, unfortunately, for a lot of NA fans. But it was, of course, TSM versus Cloud9. And Cloud9 came in pretty strong.
Yeah.
Game 1, Meteos on Sejuani, looking like the Jungle King once again, getting all of the NA fans hyped. And he did play really well. His ults were on point. And Hai played Urgot, which was, I think, unexpected for TSM. I don't think they saw that one. They may not have seen that one coming. And I also think that Hai played pretty well on it, which is rare for Hai to pick up new champions in his pool so quickly. So game 1 was good. You're like, yeah, C9, game 1, Hai, expanded mid lane pool, really solid, really exciting. And then Kog'Maw versus Corki in the mid lane, and Bjergsen got to free farm forever, and Hai didn't kill him because he's playing Corki, and because really his only two like strong mid laners are Corki and Urgot, and Urgot's not. What happened?
It's funny how we went from.
It's like.
It's funny how in the span of like 4 weeks we went from Hai can only play Zed to Hai can only play Corki, and now Urgot.
And Urgot. Boys, Urgot, and I mean his Urgot wasn't amazing.
No, it wasn't.
Like it didn't do a whole ton, but it did something, and I'm sure that people have stuff to say about this. Like Hai's impact on a game really does affect Cloud9's performance overall, and it really is the difference between doing 0% and like 15%. Is what I feel like what
generous.
Cloud9 needs to win is like High to be on his A game, which is like 15%.
Okay.
That might
Yeah.
be harsh, but like that's what I feel like they're at this point, and it's really, I mean, it's shitty for Cloud9 to be in that spot, but like High just isn't, and I just doesn't feel like a high caliber mid laner anymore.
Nope.
It's really I don't know. The worst thing about that team is that I feel like they are the team that understands each other the most in that sense.
Yeah.
Like every single member of that team, they're probably the most cohesive in that they come together and they really do. They are the team of teams in that league. Everyone else, you'll look at each team in NA or EU and you're like, okay, that's a team of individualists. Everybody's just gonna play. Everyone's playing to this one person's style, et cetera, et cetera. But this one, C9 is literally a team. They really play off of each other, and it's sad that their weakness comes from someone not playing well or just not being the best player or really that good. Like that's sad. Because with every mid laner in the league, you'll be like, okay, well they can play power picks and they can play their own preferred champion. Like for instance, you have Bjergsen. Obviously, everyone will talk about. Well, he can pick up Urgot. He can play this. He can play that. Like he has his Zed. He has his far too many picks to be honest. Like, and then you go to High, and it's like, okay, what is he effective on? Well, there are the power picks, the Lissandras, like when they're really OP, and then you have Corki and Zed. And so if you ban Zed, which people tend to do sometimes, it's like, well, what can you? Even if you give him his best champions, he's just basically he goes even, or that's the best he can hope for.
And like,
and
it's
yeah.
clear for me when he plays Corki that he's much more comfortable on the champion. His map movement is better. Obviously, his trading is better, which allows him to go even in lane. But even then, like, Corki is a pretty linear champion in what he does at every stage of the game. He's got a very strong power spike. He's very strong in specific parts. After that power spike, he shifts into a different role. And it feels like, I mean, if you give High the option of playing, like, two champions, right? Like, pretty much we forget about Urgot for a minute. We just say they ban Zed. He plays Lissandra and he plays Corki. And his Lissandra's not good. And if you get him on Lissandra, you're probably going to win. Unless, like, Balls is playing something that can have a huge impact in team fights. Because Balls is pretty consistent in that regard. But if you put him on Corki, if you take Lissandra or Lissandra's not on the table and you put him on Corki, then you know exactly what Cloud9 has to do in the mid to late game. Like, you know exactly what strategy they're funneled into, and you can pick around that. And it just feels like a huge point of weakness. Like, it just doesn't feel like any competitive mid laner can be successful with a pool that small. And like, this is a criticism that has been around forever, but it's not even like High is good at three champions. It's like High has to play one of these three champions. Like, he literally cannot play anything else if his team wants to show up.
Mm-hmm. It's heartbreaking because it's the same issue with like Link as well. And like Link has honestly become a much more motivated player. I actually like the idea of Link. I think they of Link improving throughout the season, like the fact that he was motivated. But then you get to playoffs, he plays the same way as usual, and you're like, this really sucks that he just doesn't work out. But you know what? That's just the name of the game, man. It is what it is, and it's unfortunate. You got to move forward. Like you got to move on. Mm-hmm. Like you'll lose something, obviously, like in terms of team chemistry, but that's the sacrifice you have to make at times.
The question really is the sacrifice worth it anymore?
Yeah. I've kind of thought about the High problem for a while.
I mean, I think it is.
And like, a lot of people say that like High is not necessarily like he's getting better, but people are getting better like faster than him. But then I'm looking at the mid lane talent in NA, and I really think like I don't think a lot of NA mid lane talent has gotten better, like other than like what Bjergsen, Xiao at the top, right? And then who else has really gotten better to the point that it keeps High lower than the others? Like Pole Belter? No, I don't think so. I don't know. Like, so I really just think that like High is unfortunately right now a thing of the past, and they should look to replace him. Like it would take a while to rebuild the team chemistry, but you're losing a lot more by keeping him there if he's not improving at all.
I'm going to say this because I think Steph is going to jump in because he has been casting the Challenger League.
Alpha Draft.
Alpha Draft Challenger League, Tuesday through Fridays. Check it out. Hashtag ABCL sponsors.
Yeah.
There we go.
Go.
But
You're
that
good at this, Daniel.
but that point, that idea of NA Challenger being shit or not up to par has been pushed through down our throats from day one. Like Doublelift has said it, etc. Like teams after teams after teams have said the same things. Well, we can't look to NA solo queue. They're not that good, or they're not like it's difficult to groom them, etc. And it just it's bullshit at this point. They said the same thing about Slushy when he was like, okay, let's look at it this way. Dignitas was looking for yeah, they were looking for a mid laner when they dropped Skara. And they ended up getting Golden Glue, and that was fine. I guess he didn't work out. Obviously, they were waiting. They needed more time with him.
Well,
but at the same time, go on.
On the Golden Glue point, like the big thing was like they pigeonholed Golden Glue onto Orianna and like the games that he played, and he just not an Orianna player. Like that's not what you would ever pick him. Like he's an assassin player, and he's quite frankly, I think his big weakness is he's greedy as fuck. But like if you're gonna put him on your team, like give him a champion he can actually do what he does on.
Exactly, and so. But like they got Golden Glue, they didn't give him a shot. But then you also like look at the rest of the scene. It's like, well, there's Slushy. Like Slushy was a god at that point, and now you look at him in the LCS, and now he's ascended to an LCS player, and everyone's like, oh my god, Slushy's a god. But where was that hype? Where was that recognition when he was in the when he was in the challenger scene? They only really recognize him now that he's done well on with a different team. People don't recognize the talent until they've made that ascent on their own, and it will no one will recognize it. No one will like basically look at it and will accept that actually there are a few like decent players. Like for instance, look at Frank Fang Gaming. They're a top team at this league, and they like. I forget what mid laner. What's his name again?
Oh God, don't ask me.
See, I don't remember his name. I have no idea what his name is. But I've watched. I have no idea what that guy's name is. But
he's no Baby Zeus changed his name to Bonquiche, and Latman is still Latman. That's all I've kept. That's all I've kept up.
But that team has performed really well. And Esportspedia, by the way, says it's Golden Glue, but it's not Golden Glue. He's not on that team.
No, it is. No, it is Golden Glue. They're right.
Is it? What was
Golden Glue? They had a sub for a week, or for a game or two, but it's Golden Glue, yeah.
Okay, then I like the sub then. Yeah, it even goes back to that point then. Both players are good. Someone picked them up, but you know what? No one will recognize them. That's just
and it's like why are you saying no one in solo queue is good? Like in one environment, like they're good in solo queue. Obviously, they're challenger players. Like of course they're shitty at 5v5s. Like. Do you see some formal structure where players learn to play on a fives team? Because it's not ranked fives. Like, because that's just who's ever mechanically better wins. And like, yeah, obviously strategic play does come into it. Don't want to shit on all your guys' ranked 5 teams, but
we're back. Certain people using my internet are streaming Chinese dramas that are dubbed in Vietnamese, and that's all I'm gonna say. It is okay now.
And understand that it being dubbed in Vietnamese really affects the amount of internet required to successfally run them. So it's the thing. Are we actually live? Can we talk now?
Yeah, we are.
It's fine now. It's not lagging anymore. I made sure I took care of it like I promised.
My point before the stream dies again is so like we're talking about Raz brought up the investment in NA Challenger, right? So why wouldn't you pluck an NA Challenger player to put on your team? Now, NA is kind of this weird mystery to me in that case sometimes because I feel like a lot of other regions are willing to invest or like willing to pluck challenger players and they end up working out. So like, everyone, like everyone made fun of Betsy or whatever, but like he did okay for Gambit. Like they just plucked him out of solo queue, right? Like, you have, in China, you have, like, Xie getting plucked. You have Xiao Hu getting put on Gamti. And, like, yeah, sure, these aren't, like, the best teams in China. But, like, you have to start somewhere with grabbing, a new mid laner or a new whatever. So, like, why do you think that NA specifically is really weary about that. Like, they really only want to get someone, or it seems to me anyway, they really only want to get someone who's like on an existing team or is from another region and has played on an existing team.
I think it's just. Oh, go ahead. No, you're fine.
Okay. It's one reason and one reason only, and it's pretty simplified, but it's a player-dominated region. Like in other regions, you'll have pretty hefty organizations made from esports organizations. You'll have Gambit, sure, that used to be Moscow 5, which was actually a player-focused team as well. It was built by the players, etc., etc. You'll have Roccat. You'll have all these teams that they relationships don't matter. They don't matter. If you do not perform, well, guess what? Let's look at the facts. Let's look at the stats. Let's look at the list that is available to every single person that plays League of Legends. It's called the ladder. Oh, look. Oh, my God. None of you guys are on the top 10 list here. Well, let's see. I'm sure any one of these players can outperform you. So you look at EU and they're more willing to change their rosters. That's just how it is. You look at Brazil, it's the same deal. You look at basically every region and their rosters, their teams that have a structure built around managers, an actual team structure, that they aren't players. They don't play the game. And so then you have NA. Well, what do we have here? TSM. Oh, built by Reggie. Okay, but at least that team that they've changed recently, right? They used to be that team that really they stuck with Chaos, Chao-X, yeah,
Chao-X.
And all those players, but they made the necessary changes. They understood that and then there's CLG. Holy shit, there's CLG.
Oh my God, CLG.
And they've been the worst offenders of this, where they literally go out and say that there are no players, there are no good players out there, man. We're just gonna get shit stomped by every team.
That had players you could have purchased. That's what drives me nuts.
And then they'll go off and say, how would we have known? We couldn't have known. Oh wait, maybe if you tried that person out, if given them the chance. Oh wait, you wouldn't, because you're so fucking stupid. I'm a big CLG fan, by the way. This is why I'm so outraged. I loved CLG for the longest time, but when these talents rose up, they just basically looked at them and say, NA region is just, it's just a bunch of trolls. It's just a bunch of trolls, guys. It just actually infuriated me. It was so stupid. But then you had Dignitas, and Dignitas isn't a team that's performing. But they're a team that, even though they have bad execution in the way they look for new talent, they look for new talent. They try Golden Glue. They try all these players, even though anyone who'd be like, if you actually scouted, you'd get a better result. But at least they try. But Dignitas is not a team that is Rock Solid was a team made by the players, but Dignitas is a team that purchased those players. Dignitas is a team that's a lot more open in who they can put on in their roster. But that's just how it is, man. Holy shit. That's just NA for you. NA is just a team that's built off of relationships. It's not a team built off actual results. They can look at the standings on the ladders, but that doesn't affect them. They look at that shit and be I'm just gonna denounce and reject those people, because they actually have a say in their own position on the team. Mm-hmm. That's just, I don't know. That's just.
Players get too much say in everything. It's actually pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
I appreciated your sermon on the evils of CLG and why other teams should avoid being like them.
From one CLG fan to another.
I don't know.
I still love CLG. It's that constant relationship.
So, at some point, this started off as a conversation about Clyde9, turned into a conversation about High, turned into a conversation about CLG, but for those of you who didn't watch the NA finals, they were relatively one-sided, and that's why we weren't so keen to talk on them quite as much, and why we obviously got derailed very quickly. It was TSM just being, I think, a better team, and their execution was as kind of expected. And sadly, while a lot of us had hope for C9, I think it's just C9's in an interesting place where they need to make some changes if they want to be the best in NA, as opposed to CLG, who needs to make some changes if they want to do anything ever.
They need to raise everything to the ground. They need to be like the prairie.
Burn it all.
The prairie. Just burn it all down and rebuild.
Wow.
Burn everything.
Change their mindset.
was trying to like close up, and then I started on
You're
CLG again. I
cleansing.
can't resist.
I know,
I just
dude,
want to talk
why?
about CLG.
Purge with fire.
I just think they just need to. I think the players are fine. They just need to purge their mindset. That's just. The thing. They
It's
just
still
need
part
to
of burning
drain
things
out their
down,
brain.
Razzle. Don't go against me on that. They
Okay,
need to burn
fine.
something down. All right.
Yeah.
We're
that's true.
digressing.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's
Done.
actually going to cover us. We will obviously be back next week with an exciting episode about international wildcard qualifiers. We get to talk about INTZ again. It's going to be an interesting week of content.
You make fun of me when Chiefs stomp INTZ and they lose.
Oh, I'll
And then
make
I cry myself to sleep every night. And, you know, I get all these people being like, Emily, you suck. Brazil sucks. I hate you. Go die. That's
I
gonna
like
be
how
my-
no
Blame
one
Razzle.
said anything about anything, and you went on that rant anyway. You're like, all these people are going to hate me, and it's going to fall apart. I don't care. I'm going to cry myself to sleep, and I'm going to keep coming back. Like the
Yep.
Emily Rand story. Like,
Right?
well, I mean, hopefully we'll be able to have Emily back next week. We'll have to see, obviously, how schedules work out. But international wildcard is going to be the big point of discussion next week. Thank you guys for joining us on Playoff Discussion this week. Of course, thank you to Raz for coming on your double show day. Nugan, thank you as always for hosting the stream, despite
I feel that was very
Yeah,
sarcastic.
thanks, Nugan.
No.
Chinese/Vietnamese.
It's not my
Icon
fault.
errors.
Drop.
All right, it wasn't my fault that time. I fixed it. I fixed it.
I'm
Okay.
just giving you a hard time. It's all good.
Yeah.
We will make sure. We'll get it next time. We'll get it 100% clean into the Rift show. No
We've had
hitbox.
clean in
No.
the wrist shows, damn it.
Right.
No one just remembers
Emily-
that.
Who is always putting out content on LoL Esports, and you should always check it out because she's an excellent writer.
Yeah, actually, there is, like, in legit seriousness, can go, like, do my shout out to LL Esports for employing me. And then additionally, there is a preview coming out for the International Wildcard sometime in the next few hours. I don't know. And I wrote the INTZ part, obviously. So go INTZ, go Revolta, go show the world how awesome you are.
If you don't care about them, come watch Alpha Draft Challenger League starting at 60. By
I
Wellston.
see you, Raz. I see you.
Casted
you.
by me.
See
You
you.
can watch Alex each dumpster people. It's exciting.
I'm
All
done
right,
with
guys, we'll be
that.
back next week. Thanks to our guests once again. Follow the channel if you like it. Follow us on Twitter. It's formerly the Paravine Network Twitter. Now Rift Esports, I think is the tag. And if not, I'll tweet it out because I
It's
forgot
Rift.
what the tag is.
The Twitch channel is Rift Esports, so.
Yeah, all right. Well, follow us.
And
be
we'll get the
back
VOD up
next Monday.
faster than usual.
Yeah. It'll be good. It's going to come together. We got it. We'll see,
Yeah.
see you guys next
Trust
week.
us.
Got this.
See ya. Thanks for.